The House chamber fell into a stunned silence when Caroline Leavitt, with the poise of a seasoned debater and the punch of a prizefighter, delivered one single sentence that hit like a political thunderclap. That sentence? "You talk louder than you think, Congresswoman." In an instant, the energy shifted. Jasmine Crockett, a prominent and outspoken Democratic congresswoman from Texas, was left visibly rattled. What made this line so devastating? Why did it strike such a nerve, and what does it mean for the future of both these women? Let's unpack this jaw-dropping political moment. Jasmine Crockett, a Democrat from Texas, has made a name for herself as one of the most outspoken and unapologetic voices in Congress. Elected during a wave of progressive enthusiasm, Crockett has quickly become a prominent figure among the far left. Her supporters admire her for being bold, direct, and never afraid to challenge Republican narratives, no matter how heated the exchange. Crockett's political persona is sharp and unfiltered. Whether she's on the House floor or doing interviews, on MSNBC she speaks with fiery passion, often using her legal background as a civil rights attorney to frame her arguments. She's gained attention for defending criminal justice reform, advocating for voting rights, and standing firmly behind President Biden's policies, even when those policies face national scrutiny. But Crockett's approach isn't without critics. To many conservatives, she represents exactly what they believe is wrong with the modern Democratic Party: overly focused on identity politics, unwilling to take responsibility for national crises, and too quick to label opposing views as hateful or uninformed. Her confident, often combative tone makes her a polarizing figure, not just in Washington but across the country. Enter Caroline Leavitt. If Jasmine Crockett is the progressive fighter, Caroline Leavitt is the rising conservative warrior. A former assistant press secretary under President Donald Trump, Leavitt has rapidly climbed the ranks in Republican circles. Her ability to blend clear messaging with unapologetic defense of traditional conservative values has earned her widespread respect and no shortage of media attention. Leavitt is part of a new wave of young Republicans who aren't just echoing the old guard, they're redefining it. At just 26 years old, she's articulate, media-savvy, and unafraid to confront the left on their strongest talking points. She doesn't posture. She doesn't ramble. She delivers her points with precision, often backed by stats, sharp analogies, and unflinching criticism. She's also cultivated a loyal following online. Her appearances on Fox News, Newsmax, and other conservative outlets regularly go viral. She speaks the language of the base, but with the clarity that appeals to independents and even disaffected moderates. In a political environment where younger voices are becoming increasingly powerful, Leavitt's timing and talent is undeniable. So when these two political forces, Crockett and Leavitt, were scheduled to appear on the same national broadcast, the buzz was immediate. Pundits predicted fireworks. Social media braced for viral sound bites. Supporters of both women tuned in, ready to see their champion dominate the stage. And for good reason. The stakes were high. The topics being debated were the kind that hit home for everyday Americans: border security, inflation, energy prices, and rising crime. These aren't abstract issues. They're kitchen table concerns. They shape elections. They shape livelihoods. Both women came prepared, but with very different strategies. Jasmine Crockett arrived with her usual fire. She wasted no time blasting Republicans for what she described as fear tactics and policy obstruction. She claimed the GOP had no solutions, only talking points. Her tone was intense, and her facial expressions were animated. She framed her arguments around race, inequality, and the historical responsibilities of government. For her base, it was classic Crockett: passion meets performance. But Caroline Leavitt took a different approach. She remained calm, composed, and laser-focused. She let Crockett speak without interruption, silently watching, analyzing. She took notes. She waited patiently for her turn, seemingly unfazed by the energy in the room. And when the moment came, Leavitt didn't raise her voice. She didn't match Crockett's volume or tone. Instead, she responded with a level of confidence and clarity that cut through the noise. Two women, two styles, Two radically different visions for America. But what happened next would shift the entire tone of the debate and leave one side stunned. The stage was set on a high-stakes primetime political broadcast, the kind that captures millions of eyeballs across the country. Bright lights, split screens, two opposing voices. The topic? Nothing short of the most pressing issues gripping American households, border security, inflation, and the surge in violent crime. For weeks, the promo for the segment teased a heated face-off between two rising stars in American politics. Caroline Leavitt, the fiery new voice of the Republican right, and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the unapologetic progressive from Texas. Viewers were ready, pundits were watching, and the tension? Electric. As the moderator gave a brief introduction and laid out the issues, it didn't take long for things to heat up. The spotlight first landed on Jasmine Crockett. Crockett came in swinging. From the very first sentence, she made it clear she wasn't there to play nice. Her voice was confident, controlled, but charged with emotion. She launched into a passionate critique of Republican leadership, particularly on immigration, stating that the GOP had no real solutions, just political theater. "They love to shout about the border," she said, leaning forward in her seat. "But when it comes time to actually pass immigration reform or provide humanitarian support, they vanish. Republicans are more interested in sound bites than solutions." She wasn't finished. Turning to inflation, Crockett claimed the economic problems plaguing Americans were residual damage from the Trump administration's chaotic handling of the economy, insisting that the Biden administration had been doing the hard work of cleaning up the mess. She described Republican policies as corporate handouts and outdated trickle-down nonsense. On the issue of crime, she criticized GOP governors and mayors for focusing on optics over real reform, suggesting Republicans were using crime statistics as a scare tactic to drum up fear in votes. Her tone was electric. Her hands moved expressively. Her words came fast, flowing with the practiced rhythm of someone used to commanding attention. For progressive viewers, this was classic Jasmine Crockett, unapologetically fierce, loaded with buzzwords, and ready to call out anyone who challenged her. And while Crockett spoke, Caroline Leavitt didn't flinch. Sitting to the side, arms folded across her chest, Leavitt kept her eyes locked on her opponent. Her body language didn't show irritation or anxiety. It showed calculation. Her expression? Steady, calm, focused. She wasn't just hearing Crockett's words. She was measuring them. The contrast was stark. Crockett was full of fire and fury, commanding the room like a trial lawyer delivering closing arguments. Leavitt, however, looked like a chess player 3 moves ahead, watching her opponent exhaust every piece before making her move. When it was her turn to speak, Leavitt didn't rush. She didn't match the emotional intensity. She didn't interrupt or mock or even raise her voice. She simply leaned forward slightly, kept her tone measured, and struck with precision. She began by addressing the American people, not Crockett. "What we're seeing right now," she said, "is the Democratic Party gaslighting everyday Americans who are struggling to buy groceries, pay rent, and feel safe in their neighborhoods." Then she turned. With one clean, devastating line, she directed her words at Crockett and ended the debate in a single breath. "Congresswoman, if gaslighting Americans was a job qualification, you'd be running unopposed." The room went silent. The moderator blinked, clearly stunned by the bluntness of the statement. Crockett, momentarily frozen, tried to smile it off, but her eyes gave it away. She had no immediate reply. It wasn't just the cleverness of the line. It was how effortlessly it punctured the heart of the Democratic narrative. In that one sentence, Leavitt distilled the frustration of millions of Americans who feel they're being told everything is fine when they know it isn't. She didn't need to shout. She didn't need a flurry of accusations, just one sentence, one shot. And it landed. As the moment echoed through the studio, the tension flipped. Suddenly, it was Crockett on the defensive, and Leavitt in control of the conversation. The moderator, tried to keep the show moving, but the energy had shifted. Viewers knew they had just witnessed something rare, a live political takedown, not with yelling or chaos, but with calm, clinical precision. What followed was an explosion across social media. But at that exact moment, on national television, Caroline Leavit had delivered a line that would replay for days, a sentence that didn't just win a debate, but shook the very foundation of her opponent's narrative. It only took one sentence to turn a political panel into a national headline. Within seconds of Caroline Leavit's knockout line, "Congresswoman, if gaslighting Americans was a job qualification, you'd be running unopposed." The reaction online was nothing short of explosive. Social media feeds lit up in real time. Twitter, or X as it's now branded, erupted with hashtags like Leavit Slays, Gaslightgate, and Mic Drop Moment trending across the United States. Conservative influencers and commentators immediately clipped the moment and shared it, many adding variations of the caption, "Game over." Some users compared it to Ronald Reagan's legendary 1984 line against Walter Mondale, "I will not make age an issue of this campaign, but for a new generation, in a new format, on a new battlefield." Others simply posted, "She ended Jasmine Crockett's career in one sentence." YouTube Shorts and TikTok, same story. The clips spread like wildfire. Political creators, comedians, and commentators jumped on the trend, remixing it with reaction, videos, slow-motion edits, and even dramatic music overlays. One video paired the clip with the Mortal Kombat Finish Him voice, and within an hour, had 500,000 views. Even neutral or left-leaning personalities were forced to admit it was a rhetorical body blow. One popular independent journalist tweeted, "You don't have to like Caroline Leavit's politics to admit that line was lethal. Crockett got caught flat-footed. That's just the truth." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's own supporters were scrambling. Her fans tried to reframe the narrative, claiming Leavit's remark was mean-spirited, empty, or just for clout. But the damage had already been done. The internet had crowned its victor, and there was no turning back. Even mainstream outlets picked up the story. Fox News ran the headline, "Caroline Leavit silences Democrat rep in viral debate moment." The New York Post followed with, "One-liner from GOP firebrand shuts down Crockett in primetime clash." And while CNN and MSNBC didn't give it top billing, anchors on both networks referenced the clip with words like sharp, harsh, and even politically brilliant. What made the line so devastating wasn't just its timing or cleverness, it was that it tapped into a very real frustration shared by millions of Americans. For months, if not years, voters have felt they're being told one thing while experiencing another. They're told inflation is under control while their grocery bills double. They're told the border is secure while viral videos show record migrant crossings. They're told crime is down while their neighborhoods feel less safe. Caroline Leavit's sentence pierced through that disconnect. It gave voice to a collective exhaustion, a feeling that Washington isn't just out of touch but actively trying to manipulate reality. That's what resonated. That's what went viral. Political strategist Will Carmichael, writing in The Federalist, summarized it this way: "What Caroline Leavit delivered was more than a zinger. It was a reset button. She didn't just call out one congresswoman. She called out an entire strategy of spin and denial that's become far too common in D.C. And what about Jasmine Crockett? In the hours following the debate, she attempted damage control. She tweeted, 'If the GOP had as much substance as they do snark, maybe we'd be somewhere.' But the tweet fell flat. It was quickly ratioed, meaning it had more replies, mostly critical, than likes. Commenters accused her of dodging the issue, of being flustered, and most importantly, of not responding in the moment when it counted. One user replied, "You had a national platform and froze. Now you're tweeting excuses." Caroline stayed cool and crushed you. Take the L. Even some liberal-leaning accounts privately admitted in Discord forums and Twitter spaces that Crockett got cooked. There was no denying it. Her usual fire had been extinguished, not by volume but by precision. Meanwhile, Caroline Leavit rode the wave. She posted a short message on her own Twitter X feed. When Democrats lie to the American people, they deserve to be called out. Proud to stand for the truth, she then linked to a fundraiser, and within 24 hours raised over $150,000 from grassroots donors. Her follower count spiked. Conservative PACs began circulating the clip in email blasts and ads. Right-wing media began floating serious speculation. Could Leavitt be on a short list for national office, Senate, cabinet, even vice president? For now, nothing's certain. But what is certain is this. Karoline Leavitt didn't just win a debate. She dominated the news cycle, controlled the narrative, and turned a single sentence into a political milestone. And Jasmine Crockett? She walked into that studio, a progressive star. She walked out a meme, and not the kind you want during campaign season. What happened between Karoline Leavitt and Jasmine Crockett wasn't just a viral exchange. It was a moment with real political weight, a flashpoint that could ripple across the 2024 election cycle and beyond. In today's political landscape, image and messaging are just as powerful as policy, and often more so. One viral clip, one sentence, one shift in perception can tilt a campaign's trajectory. And after this clash, two things became abundantly clear. Karoline Leavitt is a rising conservative star, and Jasmine Crockett's brand took a hit it might not fully recover from. Let's start with the Republican Party. For years, the GOP has been searching for dynamic new voices who can connect with younger voters without compromising conservative values. Karoline Leavitt fits that mold almost too perfectly. She's sharp, articulate, media-savvy, and most importantly, she knows how to win a moment. Her calm dismantling of Crockett wasn't just about rhetoric. It was about demonstrating emotional control, strategic thinking, and the kind of on-camera charisma that political consultants dream of. In an age where most viral conservative figures are men, Leavitt offers something rare. A young female Republican who can spar with the left's most aggressive voices and win. Donors have noticed. Conservative influencers are amplifying her. And behind closed doors, Republican strategists are reportedly discussing how to elevate her even further. Some say she's already a frontrunner for a high-profile speaking role at the Republican National Convention. Others are whispering about a possible House run, or even a slot on a future presidential ticket, because the truth is, the GOP needs faces like hers, voices that appeal to Gen Z and millennial voters, especially young women who feel politically homeless amid the culture wars. Leavitt, with her polished delivery and unapologetic stance, may be exactly the kind of candidate who brings new energy to the right. Meanwhile, the Democratic side is scrambling. Jasmine Crockett has long been seen as a breakout figure on the left. She's been featured in major magazines, praised for her authenticity and supported by key progressive leaders. But the debate with Leavitt exposed something her critics have been saying for a while. Crockett excels at passion, but struggles under pressure. Her performance wasn't terrible, but it wasn't composed. It lacked the clarity and precision needed to push back against a skilled debater. And when she was hit with Leavitt's viral one-liner, she froze. It was a devastating blow, not just for her, but for the progressive narrative she represents. For months, Democrats have been trying to reframe the Biden economy as a success story, to spin the border crisis as a Republican exaggeration, and to downplay crime concerns as right-wing fear tactics. In one sentence, Leavitt shattered all three talking points and did so in a way that felt authentic, not rehearsed. That's dangerous for Democrats, because while they may dominate in Hollywood, academia, and tech, they're increasingly struggling with one very important battlefield: Middle America's kitchen tables. And when those voters see someone like Karoline Leavitt calmly expose a narrative as gaslighting, it doesn't just resonate, it sticks. The clip isn't going away. It will be used in ads, in fundraising emails, in political speeches. And every time it plays, it chips away at the credibility of the Democratic message. Worse for Crockett, it may chip away at her own standing within the party. Progressives are famously unforgiving of perceived weakness. And while she's still likely to hold her seat, Texas' 30th congressional district is deep blue. Her national image has taken a serious hit. In politics, moments define momentum, and right now Crockett's moment has passed her by. What comes next? For Republicans, this is a moment of strategic opportunity. Caroline Leavitt can be positioned as the new face of a smarter, younger, more media-savvy GOP, one that doesn't just fight, but fights well. For Democrats, this is a wake-up call. They can't rely on fiery rhetoric alone. Voters want answers, composure and confidence, especially when the facts on the ground aren't in their favor. As we head into 2024, with control of the House, Senate, and White House on the line, optics will matter more than ever. And in this era of 15-second attention spans, whoever controls the viral narrative holds the power. On that night, with that sentence, Caroline Leavitt seized that power. And Jasmine Crockett? She may recover, she may not. But one thing is for sure. She'll never forget the night she got outplayed, outmaneuvered, and outclassed in one single breath. In the ever-evolving theater of American politics, it's not always sweeping legislation or breaking news that changes the game. Sometimes, it's far more subtle, a moment, a pause, a sentence, that carries the power to ripple across the national conversation. Caroline Leavitt delivered that moment. In the heat of a live televised debate, surrounded by pundits, cameras, and millions of viewers, she didn't shout. She didn't flail. She didn't fall into the emotional traps that so often dominate these exchanges. Instead, she waited, watched. And when her moment came, she struck with surgical precision. If gaslighting Americans was a job qualification, you'd be running, unopposed. That one line didn't just sting. It cut to the core of what so many Americans are feeling today. A sense that they're being lied to. A sense that the people in charge are speaking in circles, spinning every crisis into a win, and denying obvious realities. Rising prices, transitory, border chaos, secure, urban crime, overblown. Millions of viewers watched that debate and saw in Leavitt something rare. A voice that didn't just challenge the narrative but shattered it. It was poised, it was devastating, and it was unforgettable. And Jasmine Crockett, known for her sharp tongue and passionate defenses, had no answer. She froze. Not for lack of fire, but for lack of footing. In that moment, Leavitt didn't just own her opponent. She owned the narrative because here's the truth. Confidence without substance is fragile. Loud voices mean little when they're not grounded in reality. And when someone like Caroline Leavitt steps into that arena with facts, timing, and clarity, the room changes. She reminded America that substance can win, that the truth, delivered clearly and confidently, still matters. That poise under pressure beats volume every time. And for millions watching, it was a breath of fresh air. It didn't matter whether you're Republican, Democrat, or somewhere in between. What mattered was that someone finally stood up and said what many were already thinking, without apology, without hesitation. Caroline Leavitt didn't just have a viral moment. She had a political breakthrough, because this wasn't just about a one-liner. This was about what that line represented. A new generation of political leaders unafraid to challenge the system, call out the spin, and connect with everyday Americans. So whether you support her or oppose her, one thing is undeniable. Caroline Leavitt isn't just joining the conversation. She's taking the mic and she's not missing her shot. So here's the big takeaway. In politics, words are weapons and timing is everything. Caroline Leavitt didn't just win a debate. She changed the conversation. One sharp, unforgettable sentence exposed the cracks in her opponent's narrative and struck a chord with millions of Americans who are tired of being told things that don't line up with their everyday reality. But this moment isn't just about two politicians sparring on TV. It's about what that fight represents for the future of American politics. We're living in a time when so many feel unheard, frustrated, and disconnected from Washington's promises. Inflation is hitting wallets hard. The border situation feels chaotic. Crime has become a real fear in many communities. And far too often, it seems like politicians from both sides are playing a game of spin, trying to distract or deflect instead of offering clear solutions. Caroline Leavitt's one-liner wasn't just a clever comeback, it was a wake-up call. A challenge to politicians everywhere. Stop gaslighting the American people. Start telling the truth. And that challenge applies not just to elected officials, but to all of us watching and voting right now. Because here's the truth. Change doesn't come from sitting on the sidelines. It comes from speaking up, from staying informed, and from making your voice heard. So what can you do? First, stay informed. Don't just rely on headlines or sound bites. Watch debates. Read multiple sources. Dig into the facts yourself. Politics moves fast, and the truth can get lost in the noise. Being informed means you can cut through the spin and understand what's really happening. Second, engage in the conversation. Talk to your friends, family, and community. Share your views and listen to theirs. Politics is messy, but democracy only works when we're all part of it. Third, use your vote. It's easy to feel cynical or powerless, but elections matter. The leaders who represent you in Washington, in your state capital, and in your local government affect your life every day. If you want politicians who tell the truth, who fight for your interests, and who show poise under pressure like Caroline Leavitt did, then you need to support them at the ballot box. And finally, hold politicians accountable. Call them out when they spin, when they dodge tough questions, and when they ignore the real problems. Demand honesty. Demand solutions. Caroline Leavitt's moment on that stage reminds us all that words matter, and so do the people behind those words. So if you found this breakdown eye-opening, or if you want more stories like this, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. I bring you the stories and moments that shape our political landscape without the spin. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think Caroline Leavitt's sentence will have a lasting impact? Who do you think won this debate, and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get the conversation started, because at the end of the day, democracy isn't a spectator sport, it's a team effort, and every voice counts.